Hi guys, my name is Allison Broussard, and in today's book talk, we'll be talking about the fantasy genre. Over my past high school years, I have read 3 out of the 5 books that I'll be discussing today in the book talk. The first book that I would like to discuss is Twilight. Twilight was one of my favorite books that I read while I was in high school, just because I enjoy romance books, so I will tell you a little bit about the author first. The author is Stephanie Mars. Stephanie Mars was a stay-at-home mother of 3 young sons when one day she woke up from a dream filled with real characters that she could not get out of her head. Twilight was the first novel she had ever wrote. In 2005, Twilight was the most talked about book. After Twilight, she began to write the sequels of Twilight. Twilight is the first book in the first sequence. They had New Moon released in September, then Eclipse, then lastly Breaking Dawn. Stephanie resides in Arizona with her husband and 3 sons. She is also known as the author of The Host, which is directed more to adult kids. Twilight is about a high school student named Bella who was always a bit of a misfit. She never really fit along into crowds and she doesn't expect life to change much when she moves from sunny Arizona to rainy Washington State, where she goes and lives with her father. Then she meets Edward Cullen, a handsome but mysterious teen whose eyes seem to peer directly into her soul. Edward is a vampire whose family does not drink blood, and Bella, far from being frightened, enters into a dangerous romance with her immortal soulmate. This book, I would say, is mostly for teenagers, 13 and up, and it definitely can be found in high school libraries and also public libraries as well. You have to finish reading the book to see if Bella falls in love with Edward, the vampire. The next book on my reading list is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. This book fits under elementary school libraries and public libraries. This is definitely a children's book as well. The author of this is C.S. Lewis, and he is better known as an Irish writer and known for his Chronicle of Narnia series, which is a really, really good series to read. Out of his children's series of books, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was the first book released by him. He used logic and philosophy to support his Christian faith. However, because The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe does have some biblical themes in the book and had some negative reviews because of this. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe the book happened around World War II, where the bombings of London happened. 4 English siblings are sent to a country house where they will be safe. One day, Lucy finds a wardrobe that transports her into a magical world called Narnia. After coming back, she soon returns to Narnia with her brothers, Peter and Edmund, and her sister, Susan. They join the Magical Lion Aslan in the fight against the evil White Witch Jadis. The next book that I'll be talking about is The Hobbit. The setting could be about junior high or high school, grades 6 through 12 would be probably the reasonable area for people to read this book. The author of this book is John Ronald Reuel Tolkien, and he was a major scholar of the English language, specializing in Old and Middle English, twice professor of Anglo-Saxon, which is at the University of Oxford, and he wrote numbers of stories, including, most famous, the book The Hobbit, and also The Lord of the Rings. In the 1960s, he was taken up by many members of the counterculture, largely because of his concern with environmental issues. The Hobbit is about a boy named Bilbo Baggins who lives a simple life with his fellow hobbits in the Shire until the wizard Gandalf arrives and convinces him to join a group of dwarves on a quest to reclaim the kingdom of Erebor. The journey takes Bilbo on a path through treacherous lands swarming with orcs, goblins, and other dangers, not the least of which is an encounter with Gollum and a simple gold ring that is tied to the fate of Middle-earth in a way Bilbo cannot even fathom. I have read The Hobbit in high school, and at first I found that it was very boring, but the more and more you keep reading the book, the more interesting it gets. I think that most teenagers who like anything dealing with goblins and dangerous pathways and stuff like that would definitely suit this book. The fourth book that I'll talk about is The Hunger Games. I love the books and the movies as well. The Hunger Games could be found in high school and public libraries for grades 6 through 12. I think would be a suitable range for this book. This book is about realizing that the stakes are no longer just for survival. Katniss, which Katniss is the main character of this book, she teams up with her closest friends, including Peeta, Gale, and Finnick, for an ultimate mission. Together they lead District 13 to liberate the citizens of Warrenton Panem and assassinate President Snow, who obsessed with destroying Katniss. What lies ahead are moral traps, dangerous enemies, and moral choices that will ultimately define the future of millions. Have you ever thought that you would have to go and kill other people to defend yourself? That is pretty much what Katniss is doing, trying to stay alive while killing other people. It is a very good book and movie as well, and it does fit the teen genre. The author of this book is Susan Collins. She was born in Hartford, Connecticut in 1962 and was the daughter of an Air Force pilot. Her family moved several times when she was young. After proving herself as a talented children's television writer, Collins published her debut book, Gregor the Overlander, the first book of the Underland Chronicles. Then in 2008, the first book of the Hunger Games series was published. The series' first book, The Hunger Games, was released in 2008. Hunger Games is the first book of the series and alone has 2 other books. The other books are Catching Fire and Mockingjay. They were published in 2009, then in 2010. Overall, the series has been a fantastic success, selling more than 50 million print and electronic copies. And the last book that I will be discussing is Divergent. Divergent is also a book and a movie as well. The setting could be in high school and public libraries, and grades, I would say high school, 9th through 12th grade. The author of this book is Veronica Roth. Prior to graduating from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, she studied creative writing. Roth had been Divergent over winter break during her senior year. She saw the work of HarperCollins and debuted in 2011 at number 6 on the New York Times bestseller list. Insurgent, which is the sequel of Divergent, was released in 2012 and captured the number 1 spot on that list. Roth had clearly hit her stride at the right moment. The niche market for her novels were blossoming, and her offerings came on the heels of the popular young adult book, The Divergent. I read Divergent, and I think it is a great book for high school kids. It's very intense and is very interesting. The book is about an inferior dystopian Chicago society is organized into 5 sections. Each of the faction places values solid on specific virtue, which its members work to cultivate through their lives. The Abnegation, which values selflessness. Amity, which values peace. A Troop, which values knowledge. Candor, which values honesty. And Dauntless, which values bravery. That is the 5 different factions. The children are raised in their parents' faction And once they turn 16, they have options to choose themselves which faction they want to go in for the rest of their lives. Whether it's one like the one they grew up in or not, they could choose whichever one they want. Beatrice Pryor, the main character, is a 16-year-old member of Abnegation. Abnegations, which is the one that values selflessness. She and her brother Caleb, who is not quite a year her elder, take the aptitude test that will tell them which faction they are most suitable for. The test consists of simulation of confrontation with a vicious dog. Beatrice shows aptitude for 3 different factions: Abnegation, Aptitude, and Dauntless. And this means she is something called Divergent. She is warned to never tell anyone about her results. It is very dangerous to be divergent. After much contemplation over whether to stay in Abnegation or switch factors, she chooses ... You have to read the book to find out which faction she goes in and which faction her brother Caleb goes in. Thank you.